Okay, trying to see if this is working. Am I live? Am I live? I have no idea. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Catherine. Feel free to unmute yourself. I'm just getting myself organized here and seeing if this is broadcasting on Facebook. Let's see, it's live now. Okay, it is live. All right, so I think this is working. Okay. All right. Hello, Catherine.
Hello, Haley.
Alrighty. Okay, so hopefully this is working on Facebook Live. If you do see me, oh, no, that's not the wrong one. I'm just getting myself set up here, ladies. So get yourselves a glass of water if you need it. Let's see if I refresh this, if it shows me if I'm live. Let's see if I come over here. Am I live? Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. Some people can see me. It looks like it's pretty slow. Okay, I'm going to try something. Just bear with me, ladies. Am I live? Oh yeah, okay. There we go. Okay. There we go. Okay. I'm just making sure I've got all my ducks in a row before I get going here. Okay, so I'm going to admit. All right. More ladies joining. Good morning. I am going to just wait about 5. Hi, Angela. I'm going to wait about 5, not even 5. I'm going to give women another couple of minutes to jump on before I get right into the topic. I have created a very special PowerPoint presentation for you ladies. So I am stepping up my game. But real quickly, while I just wait for anyone else that wants to hop on. So if you don't know me as well, I know most of you do. But if you do not know me as well, obviously my name is Haley, you know that. I am a personal trainer. I am a nutrition coach. I studied nutrition with a Canadian company called Precision Nutrition. And Precision Nutrition is a habit-based coaching company. So I come at this from definitely a place of teaching women really how to change their habits, how to create sustainable lifestyle, sustainable change, as opposed to kind of going on like a more extreme diet for a while and then going back to your old habits. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this. And I'm going to be kind of switching back and forth between taking a look at what's happening on Facebook if I can, to see if there are any questions coming in. But if you are watching this live on Facebook, you can scroll up and you can attend the Zoom meeting where you can interact with me. So speaking of interaction, can everybody on the Zoom meeting do me a favor, go into the chat and say, hello, Haley, so that I can see you and I can see that you know how to chat with me, okay? And I'm also gonna let you know I'm going to start recording this just because I wanna be able to post this after for anyone that missed it. So I am now going to start recording. So we are currently recording. Hello, Shelly. Hello, Pamela. Hello, Angela. Okay, so I am going to start off with a question. Do you guys have any idea what reverse dieting is? So you can type either yes or no in the comments. Would be fantastic. And I'm still just keeping an eye on anyone wanting to join. And again, if you are on Facebook Live, you can definitely join. Not really says Pamela, no. Okay, no. All right. Okay, so this is going to be an interesting chat. So as I said, I've created a little PowerPoint presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you. so that you can see that PowerPoint presentation, but I'll stop along the way and see if anybody has any questions. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so here we go. And then I'm going to go slideshow from beginning. All right, so everybody should be able to see my screen at this point. Can you quickly in the chat, just let me know if you can see my screen. Just give me a quick yes or no. Oh, and I'm just gonna mute that person here. Okay, you guys can see that? Let me see, how do I get to my chat? Yes, okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay, now why did it go too far? Okay, it went too far, but that's okay. I'm gonna just go from here. All right, so we are talking about reverse dieting. And what I'm gonna do today is I'm going to tell you who would benefit from reverse dieting, why we need to consider reverse dieting, where reverse dieting comes from, where this whole concept comes from, and then I'm going to give you like a step-by-step sort of action plan on how you would go about implementing this strategy. So let's start with who this is for. So this is really for women that have hit a weight loss plateau and they feel like they have nowhere left to go. So if you are trying to lose weight and you have, reduced your caloric intake and you're working out pretty significantly, and maybe you've started doing intermittent fasting, maybe you're having one meal a day, or maybe you're eating, 1,200 calories a day, and you're, exercising an hour, 6 days a week, and you're like, why am I not losing weight? So if that is you, you're in the right place. This is also going to be of interest for women who have kind of fallen into that yo-yo dieting cycle, right? So you lose 10 to 20 pounds, you gain them. You lose 10 to 20 pounds, you gain them, okay? So this is going to be really helpful for you. So here is the main thing that I want you guys to understand. This is sort of a really important thing to understand, is that diets slow down your metabolism due to something called metabolic compensation, or sometimes it's called metabolic, oops, someone wants to come in. Sometimes it's called metabolic adaptation or adaptive thermogenesis. But you have to understand that your metabolism, it has a different idea than you do. Not that it has thought process, but it's a very automatic thing. But your metabolism was designed to always maintain homeostasis or balance. That's what it was designed to do. And one of the things that your metabolism is constantly assessing is if energy coming in, calories, and energy going out are the same, right? Because that's what it's trying to do. Your metabolism is always trying to maintain energy in and energy out in a balanced way, which means that when you decide to go on a diet and you decide that you want to fit in a smaller dress size, or your doctor told you you need to lose some weight, or you want to feel better in your skin when you go to the beach, whatever it may be, understand that your metabolism does not care about your weight loss goals. And so in a sense, you're going to be working against your metabolism, and you need to go into weight loss with this idea that you will be constantly fighting against the adaptive nature of your metabolism. So I want to talk next. Let's see. Oh, why won't that go? How do I make it go forward? Whoops. Oh, next. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about what happens a little bit more. So I'm going to give you guys some hypothetical numbers, okay? So let's say that you are an average woman and you your total daily expenditure or calories going out of your body every day are 2,000. I'm going to keep it super simple, 2,000. And you decide that you would like to lose some weight. So you decide that in order to lose some weight, you're going to go on a diet. So you reduce your intake of calories. And let's just say you reduce it down to 1,700. And then on top of that, you also decide, well, I'm also going to start exercising. So you add in possibly some running or some walking or some strength training or some cardio at the gym. So you burn an extra 300 calories, okay? So now calories coming in, 1,700. Calories going out, 2,300. So there is a discrepancy. There is a difference between calories in and calories out of 600 calories. And your metabolism is going to notice that. And at first, it's going to be like, oh, okay, no big deal. We've got plenty of stored energy. So it'll start pulling stored energy from your liver, from your muscles, from your fat cells, and it will compensate for the discrepancy, the 600 calorie discrepancy. But over time, it's going to suddenly realize, okay, this is not just a temporary thing. This is permanent. This is chronic. This is happening every single day. And that's when the adaptive nature of your metabolism is going to get triggered. And what's going to happen is, and I want you to think about this from sort of like your biological evolution, and think about our ancestors. Go all the way back to cave women. So cave women, they lived in these periods of feast and famine, right? They would have lots of food, and then suddenly there would be no food. Maybe their cave husband didn't kill the saber-toothed tiger or whatever it may be. And so their bodies had to protect them. And sometimes this is referred to as starvation mode or the starvation response. And that's what we're talking about today. That is that metabolic compensation or that metabolic adaptation that happens when your metabolism realizes, okay, this is permanent, and now I have to adapt. Because remember, your metabolism always wants balance. So your metabolism is going to try to essentially close the gap. It does not like the 600 calorie discrepancy. You do, your metabolism does not. So it's going to try and close that gap. So here are some of the things that are going to happen. There's going to be hormonal changes. So one thing that's going to happen is your body is basically going to will you to eat. And this is why diets are so hard, because your body, your metabolism actually gives you a surge of the hormone ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone. So you notice you're hungrier, your cravings go up, your appetite goes up. And again, this is your body that's trying to, again, close that gap. Other things that are going to happen is that your body's going to downregulate your thyroid. And your thyroid is the master of your metabolism. And it regulates the speed of your metabolism. So if your thyroid slows down, your total daily expenditure slows down. So again, if you once burned 2,300 calories, right? So when you first start that diet, and you're down to 17, you're doing your exercise, total daily expenditure goes up to 2,300. Over time, it's going to be 2,200, and then it's going to be 2,100, and then it's going to be 2,000, and then 1,900. Your metabolism will slow things down. And this can be like the production of sex hormones. It could be your digestive system. It could be hair growth. It could be skin. So all these different things, your body will just basically try to save energy wherever it can. The other thing that it will do is it will lower your basal metabolic rate, right? So just how many calories you burn when you're doing nothing, when you're blinking, when you're digesting, when you're sleeping. And it will also start to slow down something called non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is just movement, which is just like fidgeting and standing. And you won't even notice this happening, but you might just end up being like, oh, you're tired. You sit on the couch more, you have less energy, you move less. So that is what's happening there. It's trying to kind of bridge that discrepancy between calories out and calories in, because it wants to maintain homeostasis. So I'm going to stop there real quickly and just see what you guys, if you guys have any questions about that. Does that make sense so far? Can you give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat and let me know if you are following along and if I am making sense? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, so as you can imagine, what happens is that, let's say you go to your 1,700 calories, you exercise to 23, right? 2,300, and then you start this metabolic adaptation, and you stop losing weight. It slows down. At first, it might just slow down, right? Because your metabolism is closing the gap, and it can eventually plateau. Your metabolism can actually adapt up to 40%, okay? So eventually you stop seeing results. So what do you do next? You drop down to 1,500. You add a little bit more exercise. You widen the gap again, your metabolism catches up until you get to the point where you have nowhere left to go. And I've been having lots of conversations in my messenger with women inside this group, or women that are following me on my profile that are doing this exact thing. And they cannot lose weight because where are they going to go? The other thing that we need to consider, right? So again, let's use those hypothetical numbers. So you were expending 2,000 calories a day. You dieted, you added exercise, your metabolism adapted down. So now you're only burning, let's say you're burning 1,700 a day or 1,500 a day, okay? So you've adapted down. So now your maintenance calories, how many calories you need just to maintain your weight, has gone from 2,000 to 1,500, which means just maintaining is harder. You have less flexibility. You have less room for cheats. So what happens if you get to your goal weight, or you decide that you're going to go on vacation and you're going to take a little break from your diet, or you decide this isn't working, screw it, or you just can't do it anymore because you've been in this restrictive pattern, and some women go restrict, binge, restrict, binge, restrict, binge. So what happens? Let me move on to my next slide here, if I can figure out how. Next, okay, rebound, weight gain. Okay, so this is the next part of it, is that your metabolism has adapted down. So if you decide to take a diet break for whatever reason, and you go back to your old maintenance calories, and maybe you exercise less, you're going to put on the weight. You're going to put it back on because now you've created a positive energy imbalance. Now there are more calories coming in than calories going out. Does that make sense? Can you give me a yes in the comments if that makes sense so far? I'm just coming over to see here. Going into my little chat. Makes sense? Okay, awesome. All righty, beautiful. Thank you, ladies. Okay, so let's move on to my next slide. Whoops. Oh, here we go. I figured out how to do it. Okay, the good news is metabolic compensation or adaptation works in both directions. So when you diet, you can down-regulate your metabolism, but you can also up-regulate your metabolism. And that is what reverse dieting is all about. It's about shifting your metabolism back up to sort of a higher maintenance calories out, calories in, right? So again, if we use our hypothetical numbers, hypothetically speaking, if you're stuck at 1,500 and you reverse diet, you can move your total daily expenditure or calories out back up to 2,000, okay? So I want you to think of reverse dieting as an exit strategy, okay? That involves slowly introducing more food and slowly reducing your exercise to build your metabolism back up, okay? That's what I want you to think of when you're thinking of reverse dieting. So reverse dieting can be your diet after you diet. But for some women, it has to be the diet before you diet, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about this. So I want to talk about, so basically, reverse dieting can potentially, it can help you maintain your weight while you eat more food and while you build up your metabolism. And it can also set you up for your next phase of fat loss. And this is a mistake that I think women, not a mistake, but I think like a misconception. So we think that when we want to lose weight, it should just be like, I'm losing. And there are certain women for whom that works. Most women, it does not work that way. And when you consider, so as a personal trainer, like, I don't know if you know what the word periodization means, but it's like, sort of like phases, right? So if you think of like a bodybuilder or an athlete, they go through phases in their training. So they might go through a muscle building phase, and then they might go through a fat loss phase, and then they might go into a performance phase, but there are seasons to their nutrition or phases to their nutrition. And the same is true of weight loss. And this is where reverse dieting and maintenance can come into play. And we have to start cycling through different periods or phases or seasons in our weight loss journey. And so maybe we have a 2-month weight loss period, and then maybe we have a 1-month reverse dieting period, or maybe we have a maintenance period, and then we go back to fat loss, and then maybe maintenance, and then maybe reverse dieting, and then fat loss. We have to go through these different phases in order to continue to lose weight, knowing, as I said at the beginning, that your metabolism will be working against you. And you need to trick your metabolism because you do not want that starvation response to turn on. So where does this come from? So when you understand where this comes from, I think you might realize the potential of it. So it comes from the bodybuilding world. So if you think of what bodybuilders do, like, let's talk about female bodybuilders, right? That do competitions, fitness competitions. They basically train for 12 to 16 weeks, and they drop their body fat down to like 10%, which is incredibly difficult to do. And in order to do that, if you don't know what that requires, I'm here to tell you, it requires a lot. So these women, they basically, it's low fat, it's low carb, it's low calorie, and it's an extreme amount of exercise. So they are probably towards the end, when they're really getting down to that 10%, they are working out in the morning, they're doing their strength training, and then they go back to the gym in the afternoon and they do their 45 minutes of cardio. They're eating chicken breast and steamed broccoli, and they're drinking like 4 to 5 liters of water, which sounds weird, but it's actually a strategy for getting rid of water retention. It requires ridiculous amounts of discipline. It requires a very specific mindset. And as you can imagine, it is incredibly hard to sustain. These women that go into these fitness comps, even though they get their body down to 10% fat, they cannot sustain that, because what is required to sustain that is impossible. And so reverse dieting is a strategy that was created to help these women come back from that. Because again, their new maintenance is ridiculous, and they need to build their metabolism back up without packing on a bunch of weight so that they can get ready for the next fitness competition. Does that make sense so far? You can give me a little hello in the chat. Let me know that you're still following me and I'm making sense. That would be fantastic. Making sense, making sense. All right. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Yep. Okay, cool. All right. I'm going to just close this and let's see if I can make this go forward again. I don't know how I do it, but anyways. Oh, there we go. Okay. So let's talk about the pros of reverse dieting. So reverse dieting has a number of pros. Number one, it is repairing some of the metabolic adaptation and some of the hormonal changes that happen when we diet. And I talked a little bit about that, but like your ghrelin levels, right? Ghrelin, again, being the hunger hormone, and those go up when we diet, and we want to bring them back down. Sex hormones, so progesterone and estrogen, those will go down when we diet, because our body is like, this is not a great time to have a baby. We are in a famine. And I know none of you want to have babies right now, but you do want to have sex hormones. Trust me, they play a very important role in feeling good. So those will go down. Your SHMEC is sleep, hunger, mood, energy, cravings. And if your schmeck is not in check, that is a good sign that your metabolism is not in a happy place right now, or it has downregulated. So we want to get that schmeck back in check. The other pro is, once again, it will increase your maintenance calories, right? So, you know, I have talked to women in some of the chats where they're eating about 1,200 calories, they're working out twice a day, and they have to do that just to maintain their weight. That is hard. So by taking this reverse diet, what you can do is, again, you can increase your maintenance calories. You can maybe bump it up to 1,700 or bump it up to 2,000. And that just gives you like just more flexibility in general. But the other thing that we don't maybe think about is your micronutrient status. When you're eating less, you're also getting less vitamins, less minerals, less protein, less everything, right? And so that's not a great place to be. We want to be able to eat plenty of calories. You should be able to eat as many calories as you get away with. That should be the goal, while still seeing progress or still working towards your goals. The other thing is, again, it gives us more food freedom and more flexibility. It gives us the opportunity to have those little cheats, to enjoy, you know, a little bit of chips on the weekend or that extra glass of wine without adding the weight back on. And really, it's a nice psychological break, because dieting requires discipline. And sometimes we need a diet break. I took a diet break over Christmas because I had been so structured, and it was so nice not to kind of think of my diet for about 2 weeks, okay? The other thing that it can do is it can help you bust through a weight loss plateau, because if you are, whoops, let's see, we'll just admit Janet here. Because if you are like sort of at that 1,200 calories a day point, and you're already, you know, limiting your intake of food and you're already exercising, you need to go up in order to come down. We need to build your metabolism back up to 1,700 or 2,000 calories so that we can create a caloric deficit, because you do need a caloric deficit in order to lose weight. And there's more that you can do. You can actually cheat the metabolism, but you do have to have a little bit of a caloric deficit, okay? And then if you are a woman who works out, if you are a woman that goes to the gym, if you're a runner, if you're training for like, I don't know, like a 10K, or you do CrossFit or whatever it may be, if you're eating more calories, I can guarantee that your performance is going to improve. Now let's talk about the cons, because it's not perfect. Nothing is. Okay, the biggest con is that it requires patience and it requires continued discipline, because you can't go just from like being super strict 1,200 calories, exercising six days a week, to doing nothing. You have to, again, as I said, it's about strategically adding more calories, strategically reducing your exercise, so that you're strategically closing the gap between energy out and energy in, okay? So that can be really hard, because again, a lot of women, when they get to this point of needing a reverse diet, they're in a little bit of a fragile state, in the sense that they've probably been restricting their calories for such a long time that it's hard to slowly add them back in. So that's the biggest con. The second thing is that it might be hard to manage your appetite. And there's two things that might happen here. For some women, they might just be super hungry and it'll be hard to control themselves. But what I'm seeing a lot of in the chats with women that I'm talking to is that they simply no longer feel hunger. And they have gotten into such a habit of skipping breakfast and having maybe something at 2 o'clock that they don't even feel hunger anymore. And so for those women, it can be challenging, because to suddenly try and start eating on a more regular basis, it can feel uncomfortable because you're full. And we'll talk a little bit about what to do if that's happening, but it can be a little bit uncomfortable, because for some women, eating more is actually hard. It can also be very scary. And some of you right now might be thinking, this woman is crazy. She thinks that I need to eat more in order to lose weight. She is crazy. And you really have to push past this very strong limiting belief, which has been drilled into your brain, that in order to lose weight, you have to eat less and exercise more. And that is a limiting belief that you need to push against or that can be scary and it can be uncomfortable. And you might even see weight gain. We're going to talk about that, okay? Because it doesn't work the same for every single woman. And I'm going to show you a little research that was done. So this screen here, it shows how people metabolize excess calories differently. So this was a study that was done by the Mayo Clinic. And what they did is this was done on men. So it's a little bit different than women and a little bit different than women that are in perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause. But it's just to show as an example. But what they did with these 16 men is they asked them to eat an extra 1,000 calories above their total daily expenditure or their regular maintenance calories every single day for 8 weeks. So if they did an extra 1,000 calories a week, that would be 7,000 calories. Now, you may have heard this theory that 1 pound of weight gain or 1 pound of weight loss is the equivalent of 3,500 calories. So theoretically speaking, these men should have gained 16 pounds over the course of 8 weeks. But as you can see on this chart, some of the men gained just about 1 pound, and some of them gained 9 pounds. Nobody gained 16 pounds. That's metabolic adaptation right there. That's showing you what this process does in reverse. But again, we will not know how your body is going to respond to this until you get into it. And everyone's going to respond differently. Are there any questions so far before I get into what to do? And I'm just going to come to the chat here. Any questions so far on what I have explained? I'm also going to have a sip of my coffee while we wait and see. Any questions? Any questions? And it looks like no. All right, thank you, Angela. Okay, so let's keep going, if I can figure this out. Okay, there we go. All right, so how do you do this? So the first thing you need to do is you need to determine how many calories you're currently eating, because you need to know where you're currently at and where you need to go. And the way that I would do it is, I'm not a big fan of food journaling. I think it plays a role sometimes, but this is where maybe it could be something you could do. And what I would do is I would journal your food intake for a week at least, possibly 2, and like do an average, figure out on average how many calories you're eating. And there's 2 things that might happen here. You might realize in doing that you don't actually need to reverse diet. You might realize that you in fact need to diet. Okay, because you may not realize, maybe you're just like, oh, I just had a little tablespoon of peanut butter, but in actual fact, it was a mega spoon of peanut butter, and you've been doing that every day for the past 6 months, not realizing that it's adding up. So that's a good place to start. But maybe you will realize that, oh yeah, no, I really am eating only 1,200 or 1,400 calories a day. And then you need to kind of figure out what your ideal maintenance calories is. And you can go, there are a ton of different calculators online. So if you just Google total daily expenditure, okay? Total daily expenditure. Because I want you to know what your basal metabolic rate is, which is how many calories you burn when you're just kind of existing, right? So digesting food, sleeping, breathing, circulating blood. I want you to know what your, how many calories you're burning when you're just moving around, like doing the laundry, doing the groceries, picking up after your kids or your husband, whatever it may be, and then exercise. Because that will give you an idea of how many calories you could be burning. Somebody, I'm just gonna check the chat here. Looks like somebody had a question, let's see. Google one again. Okay, I'm gonna put it in. Total daily expenditure, okay? So it's in there, all right, okay? Because that's gonna give you an idea of sort of where you could be, because you need to know, right? So you need to know where you're currently at, and you need to know where you possibly could be. So that's the first step. The second thing you're going to have to do, if I can move this. Okay, so the second thing I want you to do is I want you to set a new goal for yourself. And the study that we just looked at, I mean, they added 1,000 calories. That is a lot. You do not need to add 1,000 calories. What you might want to do is increase it by 10 to 20%. Again, this is going to be based on your comfort level. It's going to be based on how much you actually trust me. Maybe you're like, again, I don't know, Haley, this seems kind of crazy. So you have to go with your comfort level. Let's say you're eating 1,200 calories and you want to add about 20%. That's going to be about 1,500 calories, for example, maybe a little bit less than that, right? So it's a bit of a jump. And what you could also do, now, if you're already working out all the time, you could continue doing that. You could continue doing that. And then maybe once you start this process, because there's kind of two ways that you can close the gap. You can eat more or you can exercise less. So maybe you do a little bit of eat more. If you love working out, keep working out, whatever. I'm all cool. That's cool. Maybe you're just like, I'm so tired of working out 6 days a week. So maybe you add a little food and then a week later you cut out one workout. And then you add a little food, you cut out a workout. So see how we're doing this slowly over time? We're not doing like this drastic overhaul. We're not going from 1,200 calories to 2,500 calories. We're just slowly increasing it. We're doing a little bit of a shift. If you are currently sedentary, but you're eating a small amount of food, you could bump up your calories and add in exercise. That will still raise your metabolic rate, but it won't necessarily close the gap, which is not a bad thing. You could do that later, but you're still raising your metabolic rate because now you're still going up to 1,500 calories, but you're working, but you're adding in the workouts. So the gap stays the same, but the metabolism goes up. Does that make sense? I'm hoping that makes sense. And so that can possibly limit weight gain a little bit by doing that. Okay, next. All right, let's just see what's in the chat here. Whoopsie, how did that go up there? Yes, it makes sense. Thank you, Catherine. Okie dokie. All right, so step number 3, protein. Women don't eat enough protein. I can almost guarantee most of you are not eating enough protein. We have to think of protein. There's sort of like 3 different benefits to making sure that you're getting enough protein, especially when you're reverse dieting. Number 1, if you're going to give your body any kind of extra calorie, make it protein, because protein is much more likely to get sucked into your muscles and you're going to build muscle mass versus carbs and fat. So if you're going from 1,200 to 1,500, I would love to see that come from protein. It's also, that is the food, if you're one of the women who is hungry because you've been dieting, it's the food that's going to give you more control over your appetite. It's going to leave you feeling full. It's going to leave you feeling satiated. It's going to give you more control, more willpower, more discipline. The other thing that I love about protein is it's actually a thermogenic food, which means that just the act of eating protein is going to raise your metabolism. So those are your 3 sort of benefits. And I've given you here just like an ideal sort of goal. So 0.8 grams to 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. And the ideal is important because if you currently weigh, say, 200 pounds, you don't need to eat 200 grams of protein. But let's say that you know your ideal body weight is, I don't know, let's say it's 130. Let's say that before you had kids, you weighed 130, and that's like sort of a weight that you'd love to get back to, and that's like your ideal. Then use that to determine your 0.8 to 1 gram per day. And just that alone, that's a fantastic step right there, okay? All right, step number 4. So weird. Okay, there we go. Okay, step number 4 is monitor your progress and adjust as necessary. So what are we looking at? So what I'm going to tell you right now is that when you go, if you decide to try this strategy, if you remember that chart, you will probably gain a little bit of weight. I'm not going to lie to you. And I don't want you to send me any hate mail, okay? Because you will probably gain a little bit of weight. But I want you to look at it again as these phases, right? So if you, and maybe you won't, some women, because I have had women in my group, in my program, that I know they've increased their caloric intake and they've seen weight loss. So some women, it will speed up the metabolism and they will immediately see weight loss. But for some of you, you're going to gain weight. And I want you to remember that in order to create a caloric deficit, you first need to build up the metabolism. So you've got to start thinking about your weight loss in terms of phases. This is a building phase. So let's say, so you might, like, I would try and aim, okay? So let's say you add in 300 calories, you just monitor the weight on the scale. If you're packing on 2 pounds every single week, back off. You need to figure out a different approach. You can talk to me, send me an email or a message. But if you're seeing just a little bit of weight gain, then that's okay. If you're gaining, like, say, a half a pound every week, at the end of the month, maybe you've gained 2 pounds. But in gaining those 2 pounds, maybe you've now increased your caloric intake to 1,500 or 1,700 or maybe even 1,900. Now you've got somewhere to go. Now you can start creating a deficit again, but you can do it with some more smarts, because now you know that you're working against your metabolism, okay? You can also look at your measurements. You can look at biofeedback. How's your hunger? How's your energy? How's your sleep? And then mindset, like, how are you doing? Are you comfortable with the weight gain? Maybe you're just like, okay, I'm gonna do this, but when I gain 5 pounds, like, that's it. That's where I call it quits. That's where I'm like, whoa, this is what I'm comfortable with. And now I need to stop the reverse diet and go back to the diet, okay? So there are different things that you have to think about when you're trying to monitor your progress. And then the 5th thing you need to do is when you sort of go through this period, and you might want to do it for a month, you might want to do it for 2 months. It's going to depend on your patience, to be perfectly honest, and your mindset. But when you get there, I want you to remember that you are working against your metabolism. And so what you want to do is, you do need to create a caloric deficit, but don't make it extreme. Don't make it like this massive caloric deficit. You've got to, right? So that there's less of an alert system going on in your metabolism that's seeing this discrepancy between calories in, calories out. I would not suggest more than about 20%. And then what I would suggest is strategically incorporating, you could do periodic refeeds, maybe once a week, or you can do something called intermittent caloric restriction, where maybe you diet for 2 weeks, you go back to maintenance. You diet for 2 weeks, you go back to maintenance. Or you push on the metabolism for about 3-4 weeks, you reverse diet. You push on the metabolism, you reverse diet. It's kind of like you're taking maybe 2 steps back in order to take 4 or 6 steps forward. That's how you've got to think about this, because you've got to get out of that loop of just kind of continually being in this cycle of yo-yo dieting, or this cycle of really being stuck in this place where you have nowhere left to go. So I'm going to stop there for a second, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. All right, if you guys have any questions so far, you can unmute yourself and ask them, or you can put them in the chat. How is that landing with you? Does this all make sense? What are your thoughts about reverse dieting? Anybody? Makes sense? Okay, awesome. I know there's a bit of delay between us because my internet is pretty bad, but Any other questions about it? Has its place, but complicated. It is, Catherine. It does has its place, but it is complicated. So, scary step, yes. So, yes. So, I'll tell you quickly. I'm just going to pin myself here. Okay, so it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't so there's different ways of doing this. Might be tricky to incorporate into life. Okay, yes. So what I do, let me tell you how I do it with my clients, because yes, it is rather complicated if you have to know your calories and add your calories. So I'm off the Band-Aid a little bit faster, which is what I do with the women in my program, because then it's not as complicated. So I have quite a few women in my program right now that have come to me from this place of eating not enough calories. And I give them a meal plan that includes breakfast and lunch and dinner, and I give them workouts, and I kind of send them on their merry way with that information, but then I can keep track of what's happening. So if this all feels complicated, you could simply, without worrying too much about calories or how many you're eating or whatever you're doing, you could simply just be like, right, I'm going to reduce some of my exercise, or I'm just going to practice. If you practice intermittent fasting, maybe you start doing it every other day instead of every single day. Or if you've been skipping breakfast, maybe you start adding in a small breakfast. Like, you can do it more intuitively, but just make sure that you are monitoring your progress, and that you are that you have a plan, like you have a little bit of a structure. Oh, cool. So Angela said, it makes sense. I did reduce my workouts, and I did see a change to me dropping some weight. So there you have it, right? It's just like there's less of a stress on the body. The metabolism does not feel that discrepancy as much. I think I'll start with reducing some fat, increase protein, and journal for amount of calories. That's a good place to start as well, right? So I like to, especially for the women out there that are already doing sort of a keto low carb approach, you can 100% think of fat as a lever. And so you could start to, if you're like, yeah, I need to increase my caloric intake, then you could add in more fat, right? Like, you could just, and it could be as much as like, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of MCT oil to my morning shake. Right there, there's 150 calories. You could just do that for the next week. And then maybe the following week, you add 2. There you go, boom, you've just added 300 extra calories a day. So you don't have to make it as complicated. This is kind of a more step-by-step guide, but you can do it a little bit more intuitively. If my issue is not calorie deficit, but it's certainly yourself, and just clarify that for me, Jasmine.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I generally don't count calories. But I guess my question is, like, could you sort of apply the same concept, but say you're doing sort of a keto type diet, would you do it until you sort of hit a certain weight and then change it up for a certain amount of time, whether that's adding in carbs or whatever? Like, does that same idea work, sort of cycling through different ways of doing it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So what you're referring to is something called diet variation. And you, again, like, if you know that your metabolism is constantly adapting, the worst thing you can do is the same thing day in and day out and day in and day out. So, and I think this is something that I see a lot of women do, especially if they're tracking their calories, right? So they might set themselves like a caloric intake on MyFitnessPal of say 1,200 or 1,400 or 1,600, and they do that every single day, and they hit it exactly. And the metabolism will adapt to that. And again, what we want to do is we kind of want to trick the metabolism. So if you can add in diet variation, that means your body is constantly having to adapt. So in my program, the women in my program, what they're doing changes. There's like 3 different phases. So the first phase is definitely sort of closer to keto, possibly keto. I don't get them to check their ketones, but they're probably in ketosis, right? And then in the second phase, they start introducing carb cycling, and they introduce intermittent fasting, and we're switching up the times. And then in the third phase, I introduce calorie cycling. So they have lower calorie days and higher calorie days. And as they get to the end of that, then I'm probably going to push them into either a diet break, or I would push them into a different form of calorie cycling. Because even like, so you could just switch it up in so many ways. Like for instance, you could do 1 week, you could do intermittent fasting, 16-8, Monday to Thursday, and then you could do a longer fast on Friday, and you could eat everything that you want on Saturday and Sunday. And then the following week, you could do intermittent fasting on Monday and Tuesday, and you could do like a longer fast, say on Wednesday and Thursday, and then be more lenient Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? So you're switching it up. And by doing that, it's like your body doesn't ever really have a chance to adapt. And then this idea of intermittent caloric restriction, which is like you could do 2 weeks where you really kind of dial up your nutrition. You know, you cut out the snacks, you kind of cut out the wine, you really dial it up, and then you do 2 weeks where you slack off a bit. And just by doing that, your metabolism will be constantly adapting. And that constant adaptation can help you to continue to see results. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question?
It did, yeah, absolutely. And I guess I'm not conscious about it enough. So I think that's the difference, is I've sort of done one thing for a long time and then I just get tired of it and don't do it anymore, but I'm not like consciously switching from one thing to the other. So maybe that's the difference.
Yeah, it is. And I think that you bring up a really good point, is that you kind of need a little bit of a structured plan, right? Because if you're going to just go on a diet, like the standard diet, and you're just cutting your calories and you're, working out more intensely, and you do that for 30 days, well, again, it's not the best because it's just going to put you in this situation. But the way that I teach women, which is sort of like slow and steady, sustainable lifestyle, you kind of need to come up with a game plan, as opposed to just like doing it sort of willy-nilly. Like you need to like sit down and come up with a game plan the same way as you would plan out like what you're doing at work, or if you're going to do workouts. If you're like a bodybuilder won't go into the gym willy-nilly hoping to get the body they want for a fitness competition. Like they have a game plan, they have a structure. So I think we have to kind of just create a bit more structure, or think about it a little bit more, and just sort of map it out a bit more. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm talking about, is sort of making that plan and making that a conscious choice, rather than just like, oh, I feel like eating this or eating that. Like, this is the week I'm going hardcore and this is the week I'm not. And knowing that sort of takes the pressure off, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be talking about calorie cycling. I want to talk to you guys more about that. So just to give you an example of structure. So I'm playing with calorie cycling right now because it's part of what I do, again, inside the program. And I want to give women different sort of structures to play with so that they can vary things up. So what I'm doing right now is, and this could be just something you play with, Jasmine, is I'm doing 4 days of lower calorie and 3 days of higher calorie. So what that looks like is I do intermittent fasting from Monday to Thursday because it's midweek, and I know I can dial it up right? And so I do lunch at 12, and then I do dinner at 6. And so I've cut out an entire meal. So I know I'm cutting my calories. It's, pretty obvious. I don't, and the other 2 meals are just regular size meals. And then on the weekends, I open it up and I have 3 meals. I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I'm giving myself sort of that periodic refeed, right? So again, my metabolism on the weekend is like, oh, okay, wait a minute, there's more food coming in. So that helps. But I'm also going to do that for maybe 2 weeks. And then I'm going to go 2 weeks where I eat 3 meals a day, as opposed to doing the intermittent fasting, because I know that my metabolism will eventually adapt to that cycle. And I don't want my maintenance calories to go down. I want to be able to create a deficit, but keep my maintenance calories up. So then I have to take a little break, and then I could resume that. Does that kind of structure make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I like the idea of switching from like the intermittent fasting, because I am doing that.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of taking a break for it, because
Yeah.
I know I can't do it mentally every day. And I know it's not good to do it every single day. So
yeah, exactly. And that one, it's easy, right? Like you don't have to think about the calories. It's an easy way of doing it. And that's what I'm all about, like, is ease, right? I'm not a calorie counter. I'm not a macro counter. That's not what I teach. Even though I talked about it today, I think there are ways of doing it without having to count calories. You just have to think about it, right? You have to kind of take a moment to really think about it and be like, okay, how could I do this? As opposed to just kind of crossing your fingers. Any other questions that are coming up here? Thank you, Pamela. Thanks for joining. Any other questions, ladies? We're all good. We are all good. All right. So if we are all good, I will. I'll bring this presentation to an end. You know how to reach out to me. For those of you, I'm going to post this on Facebook after. So for those of you that are watching this live or that are catching the replay, I would love to know what is sort of like your one takeaway that you have gotten from this presentation. And if you found this valuable, what you can do is you can help me kind of spread this message. So when I post this live, if you can comment and just let me know, that was great, Haley, thank you very much, or this is what I've taken away from this, because when you comment, when you interact with me, it just helps me get this video out to all of the members in the group, because we've got about 2,100 members, but Facebook, it's really weird. Their algorithm is weird, and they may not send this out. Not everyone's going to see this. And the more you guys interact and comment, the more I can get this message out there and help more women. So I would appreciate that if you could do that for me. If you want to figure out if you need to reverse diet, so I put out a 7-day meal plan. If you haven't seen that, you can reach out to me. But if you did that 7-day meal plan and you lost weight, then you might not need to reverse diet. Or you're one of those women that can reverse diet and lose weight. But if you did that meal plan and you saw no changes in your body weight, then that might be an indication that you need to reverse diet. So let that be a little bit of a hint for you. And if you don't know where to find that, I'll post the link, but it's, actually, I'll put it in the chat right now for anyone in the chat. I think you guys have all seen it, but it's projectmenopause.ca/meal-plan. So that is where you can get that 7-day meal plan. And that might help you to figure out if you do need to reverse diet. And then if you need more support, then you can also reach out for me or reach out to me, because like I said, I have a lot of women inside my program that are currently reverse dieting. just because of the nature of my program and where they were at when they came to me. And what I do is when I realize that I'm working with a woman that needs a reverse diet, then I just track. I just check in with them every week. Where are you at? How does it feel? You know, if you're too full, let's work on that. And I help them through that process. So yes, you can reach out to me if you would like some more support with that. And if you like these little mini trainings, let me know. I've got a couple of other topics that I'd like to do. I'm thinking of doing these once a month. So I'd love your vote. Do we want to learn about carb cycling? Do we want to learn about calorie cycling? Do we want to learn about the foods that we should be eating to balance out our hormones? Those are the next 3 topics that I'm thinking about. So cast your vote, ladies. Take away, trick your metabolism, switch it up. Awesome, Carrie. That's awesome. Well, that is it. Yes, yes, and yes. Love the mini presentation once a month would be great. Awesome, Angela. Hormones comes up. And if you're catching again this replay, you know, please comment below. Let me know. Hormones. Everybody loves talking about hormones, and I love talking about hormones. So there we go. All right, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that was of value. I hope you learned something. And have a fantastic day. I will see you soon. Bye, ladies.